All right, video number 10, we are going to get to building a electrical contactor. So if you followed through everything so far, you should have 3 small libraries that you've created with a receptacle, with a wiring fan, with a screw shape that's inside of there, and you should have most of your basic skills, of alignment, fragmenting, combining and junctioning, things like that, more or less laid out and ready to go. So now we're going to jump into creating a motor control component, just a standard contactor. Personally, I like Schneider stuff. I don't like Siemens stuff. I don't like, a lot of the other brands that are out there necessarily as well. And that's just based on my experiences in the field and reliability issues and things like that. So we're going to draw my favorite Schneider ones. Now, you don't have to draw Schneider. You can go and pick out any type of contactor that you can find a good, clear picture of, but it's going to be the exact same steps that you're going to utilize for that. So, excuse me. Been talking a lot in a row here, making all these videos, and my throat's drying out. Let's go and kick into Visio, and let's get started. And that is right over there. Perfect. Okay. So I'm starting with a blank template that I'm going to go and use over here, or with a blank sheet. I've got nothing that is going to be saved on there. I am going to go and find some of my shapes, and particularly what I'm looking for right now is I'm going to go and find my template for my screws that are going to be in there, because we're going to use some screws on the contactor. I'm also going to go and minimize this, and I'm going to, hold on, let me just close that. We'll drop that down there. We are going to pick out our contactor picture. Now, I've already selected this contactor from online. This is one of my favorite ones to use with explaining apprenticeship devices. It's a 3-pole contactor, line 1 to T1. It has got a coil off of it, and it's got built-in normally closed 21, 22 contacts and normally open 13, 14s that are going to be crosser. Great for working with, forward reversing or anything like that, because you've got all of the normally open, normally closed without having to fool around with any of my interlocks. That's the one that I'm going to build. You find yours that you want to go and work with. I'm going to go and take my picture that I've got saved to my desktop. That's all it is, a save file. I'm going to right-click off of it. I'm going to do the same things I do with the receptacle. I'm going to go and hit copy. Once I have got that copied, I am then going to go and kick back into my Visio down there, and then I'm going to go and hit Control-V, which is going to be paste. Now, we see that this thing takes up almost the entire page, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and resize down to something that's going to be smaller. I'm probably still going to go a little bit smaller yet, because I do want to have enough room on my paper that I can place other components and have students draw. Once again, the problem would be that if I would to go and take this entire thing and draw, that size, and then, take it in, drop it back down, all of my text sizes, everything like that would be off. So build it to the size that you figure you're going to be using it at. I like something somewhere around that size over there. Beautiful. Now, when I take a look at this thing, I've got good, clear components that I can go and see for all of these. I've got good, clear screws, line breaks, etc. It's a little bit foreshortened, but it's nothing terrible that's going to go and cause issues. We're going to do the exact same thing as what we did before, but now we've already got some components done. These screws are not identical to the ones that are on there, but they don't have to be, because honestly, your students aren't going to be looking at them, as whether or not they're going to be identical. I'm dragging in a screw head over here. If you want to get fancy with it, you can go and throw that thing at 45 degrees there in my shape and size window there. Makes it look like it's, in use there. We'll take this one up top over here. We're going to go and drag that one. We're going to place it across over here as well. We are also going to modify the contactor. I'm really looking to get the basics of the contactor in there, but I don't want to necessarily make it identical to the field device, because it makes it harder for on-paper devices. What I mean is, right now, if I stick the screw down there, and if I have students draw to the screw, they would have to pass through the label. And so what I'm going to do on mine is I'm going to still keep the general, look, but I'm going to go and place my label below, and I'll move the screw up. And I'll show you that here in a second. All right, so we've got this screw that's going to be in place there. I've sized my screws so they fit roughly about the same size. Once again, we're not looking for perfection. We're just looking to go and get something that's going to be close to what we need to go and have off of there. Now that I have those two, I'm just going to go and take those off to the side here for the time being. And we're going to start by building our rectangles that are going to be the main body. So I'm going to take my rectangle tool. I'm going to go and trace the main contactor size over there. I'm going to go and give this thing a fill right away, might as well. We saw that it was kind of a grayish, and then I'm going to go and kick it right to the very back so it's out of the way. Then I'm going to go and create another rectangle. So I'm still on my rectangle tool. I have nothing selected right now. If you're unsure, always click out into the grid so that you know you're clear. And then I'm going to go and create another set that's going to be across there, and I'm going to go and get that thing kind of a light cream color. Once again, we're going to go and kick that thing out towards the very back, and I'm going to go and find my coil that's going to be inside of there. There's the armature, sorry, not the coil, but that's the armature that we have over there behind that little window, and I'm going to go and make that thing more or less kind of a dark bluish there, and then I'm going to go and kick that thing to the back as well. You can get more fancy and draw on these little bars that are going to exist on these things. You can draw on these lines here. We're going to do some of that stuff afterwards, but for now, I'm happy with just that component there with those, because if I take this and I send this thing to the very back, if I send it right to the very back, you can see that we got the shape in there. So I'm going to take that picture back to the front over here. Okay, next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go and take each of these now. Trust me, I've done this a lot. It's far easier if instead of just dragging and placing all of these across here, we're going to immediately create groups with numbers attached to them. So I'm going to go and take my text tool that up top there, that was that up there. I'm going to go and give this thing a L1 designation. And I'm actually going to go and take that L1 designation and I'm going to go and put it into that really good font that we have, the Arial Narrow that I have over there. So here's Arial Narrow. You can place it bold if you want. You know, it makes it a little bit larger, a little easier to see. And I usually kick down the size once again to 8 point. 8 point seems to be still readable on most sheets, but it's not so large and overpowering that it takes everything else up. And then what I'll do is I'll just shrink it down so it's roughly kind of to size, and then take this and this, use your alignment tools. We're going to kick that to the center over there. I'm going to bring this one up so that it's kind of more or less looking like that. And I'm happy with that. I'm going to take this text that I have by clicking on the black and the white. If you click near it, it doesn't do anything, but if you click on the actual black part, I'm going to go Control-C, Control-V. I'm going to go and bring that one over here, and I'm just going to go and give this thing a designation. I'm going to just call that thing 13NO, because that's going to become that other terminal there, 13, and I'm going to hit Enter, and O underneath, like that, and that's going to become these top ones over here. So now that I've got that and this laid out here on the side, I'm going to grab them, group them, Control-G, and then drop them across. Control-C, Control-V, and it doesn't matter that they're all labeled that right now. Control-V, they're all labeled that right now. I see I got 3 of those laid across there. Don't worry, we're going to do the alignment of the spacing later on. I'm going to move them up a little bit, like I said, because that way when students draw their lines, they got the L1 underneath there. This section that I have over here, I'm going to take all of these. I'm going to go Control-G once again, and then I'm going to go copy, and I'm going to paste it over 3 times. 1, 2, 3, so that I have got all of these now set for that. 13, and once again, don't worry so much about exactly where they are. Remember, we're going to be able to go and distribute all of these later on. So I'm going to take this, this, and this. Now that I have those 3 up top there, I'm going to select them. I'm going to go and align them. So I'm going to align the top to make sure that they're all even. And then I'm going to go position, distribute horizontally, and then I'm going to go and group them. So now I've got a group of 3 in there. Same with these ones over here. Grab these, grab these 3, holding down Control, clicking on each one of those. I'm going to go and align the tops. Then I'm going to go and distribute horizontally. So you see the one shift there, and then I'm going to go and group them as a group over there. Reason for this is that, honestly, we can then take this group here that I have, go Control-C, Control-V, and then I can go rotate. I'm going to flip that thing vertical. Oh my goodness, would you take a look at that? The lettering stays right side up. This is fantastic. It's a major win for you. It's a major win for me. It's a major win for everybody. But I can drag that thing kind of right down there, and it's more or less set to go. Same with this group over here. I'm going to go Control-C, Control-V. Once again, rotate, flip that sucker vertical. That is now going to move all of the lettering to the other side. Okay, we're going to go and adjust all of that lettering later on, but would you look at that? We are like 99% of the way through on this contactor build. Okay, now I'm going to go and take this thing and I'm going to use my arrow keys. I'm not going to drag it with my mouse, but I'm going to use my arrow keys to push this thing over to the side just so that it stays more or less lined up. You should see this big black box here, or gray box, because that was this base over here. Remember we drew this one, but then we sent it to the back. So what I need to do is I need to send this thing to the back. And now we start to see that, tan part, but we still don't see that other hidden blue section. I can either send this thing to the back again, so that I can see that one, and then send this one to the back one more time so I could see that one. Or you could have just done like a search by using the box, and you could select it while it's hidden in behind. Really makes no huge difference to us, how we're going to do it, but we can just make sure that we bring these sections out here to the front. A couple of things that I do like to do, be creative a little bit. You're more or less looking to get the operation, but I don't mind moving these ones up maybe a little bit, moving these ones down maybe a little bit. Not greatly, but enough that I'm going to have a bit of room to write stuff on the contactor itself. Same with these ones over here. I'm going to go and move them maybe up a little bit, or at times, you're going to look at this, you can say, yeah, that's got to come up a little bit. So I just got enough room off of there. Okay, we're not going for, complete replication. We're going for close enough that our students can work with this, right? It's all about the students. It should be. I don't know. Who knows? All right. We'll roll this one up here a little bit there as well, kind of even that thing out. And honestly, if you want to go and balance it, just take this thing, and do that align, middle. At that point, it's perfectly aligned. You then have this piece and this piece. You can then go and make sure that those are going to be aligned to the center as well. So I'm going to grab this piece, that group, this group. I'm going to go and align them all to the center. Now I've got all my poles aligned through. I'm then going to do a similar thing with this one and this one. I'm going to align those two to center or to right. It doesn't matter as long as I have them just aligned together. And then I'm just going to use my arrow key. That's what I'm clicking right now, moving them up so that they're on here. Perfect. We're almost there. Now we're just going to go and add in, a little bit of prettiness off of these things. You can see that these things here have got a line that goes across over there. So oftentimes, I'll just go and throw some decorative lines off of them. They really don't do anything. You just snap across, and you're just creating a look that's going to go and look like the actual usable one that they have, in the field there. Okay, last thing we're going to do now, all of these ones were labeled before. We're going to go to our text tool. Text tool is wonderful in that if you go over top of any piece of text, you see how it jumps to that, instead of us having the bar, I'm using this text tool up here, instead of us having the bar, it jumps to us having the bar. This means you can select anything you want as the actual text and then just start writing into it. And even when I'm zoomed out further, it just brings it up full size here. So I'm going to just call this thing 21, enter NC, right? Because that's what that one is. We see that we have 13, oops, sorry. We have got 13 NO, 21 NC, and then we're going to have our A1 that's going to be over there. So we'll select over top of that. We're still using that text tool. We will call that thing A1. Down here, we're going to select that one. We're going to make that one A2, 22 NC, and 14 NO. And then these ones down here, we'll just make these all the T's. So T3, T2, and T1 over there. And then up top here, L3. You got to select the text itself there. I clicked onto the shape itself, and L2. Okay, basically we are at the stage now where we've got this thing labeled out more or less. It looks like a actual contactor itself. What I then tend to do is I tend to grab all of my components and I'm just going to do an ungroup. And I'm going to go and hit, so now it's ungroup those sections. I'm going to ungroup one more time. So now it's down to just the screws and everything else is ungrouped. And that just allows me to start grabbing some of these, and moving these things up to where I want them to be. That one there was over that line. We'll move this one down here a little bit so it's over there. I'm also going to go and take a copy one of these text blocks. I'll go Control C, Control V, and then I'm just going to place a coil voltage. Trust me, if you don't label the coil voltage on there, then you always get questions about that later on. you can, because it's dynamic, you know, anytime that you use this drawing, you can change that. If you're going to go with 120 volt coil to a 24 volt coil, whatever that's going to be, that's up to you at that point. So we'll just drop that thing down there. And then any last decoration that you want to go and do at this point, now would be the time to go and do it. Maybe stick a little green bar over top of there. We'll just fill that thing in there. We're going to make it kind of a Schneider-y looking sort of green. If you wanted to get rid of that black line, there is the option that with your lines, you can go and do what's called no line. So I go to my lines over here, do no line, and it just removes the line and only leaves the fill. And that's going to be inside of there. We'll take that, and we will go and take that over there. I'll let you look at that. More or less, we're good to go. I don't usually, like I know on mine, I've got a lot of the little Schneider symbol more or less drawn inside of there. I do always find whichever contactor it is that I'm using. In this case, it's an LC1D25. Make sure you copy a PDF copy of the instruction manual. It's so handy for when you're assigning these things to students that you can give them a manual, and then on the drawings, they've got something that looks like the actual contactor. Let me just pull up one of mine here. Motor controls, we'll go to Schneider. This is, you know, the contactor that I generally use for it. Once again, I've foreshortened, I've taken a few liberties, you know, so it doesn't look quite the same size over here. It's a little bit smaller, but you can see it's more or less the exact same thing. You space stuff out, give yourself enough room. You don't have to have these things vertical. You can have them horizontal the way I did, but I had to go down to a size 6 font in order to go and do that. We'll delete that though, because that's not the one we're working on. We are working on this one. Okay, last steps. Last steps, and this is going to be something new that we haven't done in anything else so far before. We're going to ungroup all the way down to base units, which is going to go and lose all of our connection points that we had on these 3, which isn't the end of the world, because honestly, we're going to go and create new connection points up top there. But we're going to go and hit ungroup one more time, and we get this window that pops up. It says, this action will sever the object's link to its master. What it's specifically talking about is these over here, which we pulled in from the connectable screws shapes that we have over there. It's now being pulled out. We're going to sever it, and that's okay because we're not using it as a shape. And we see that that happens when I hit OK, it breaks into all its components. So I will ungroup. I'll keep hitting ungroup on a section until it goes all the way down to the base unit. Then I'll group. Honestly, it just prevents glitches. When you have multiple layers and you have different groups within groups within groups, Visio can get a little bit janky at times. So just avoid it by ungrouping all the way down. Okay, now we've got our contactor built. Last thing we're going to do is we are going to go and throw connection points on everything. So I'm going to click this one. Then I'm going to go and click my connection point. Remember that you have to hold down Control on the shape. The shape has to be selected. Then you can go and drop your connection points. So I've got those there. And then I'll drop this one, this one, this one. Sometimes they don't snap to the center of the screw. You can see that one over there. You can actually grab them. I just clicked on them there without using Control, and I hit Delete. And now I can hold down Control, and I can try and redo that a little bit more centered. So let's just finish these ones. This one, this one, this one, and then this one, and this one. And there we are. We have now got a contactor completely built. It's got connections on it. We're going to go and save it under a new shape. So we're going to go and create a new stencil. Sorry. So my shapes down to the bottom, new stencil. Creates a new stencil. We're going to grab it, drag it in there. And I'm just going to go and call that thing contactor. In mine, I actually label them by the manufacturer names because it's so much easier to then, you know, pull up the proper data sheets. But now it's inside of here. We can now pull out an unlimited number of contactors. Wouldn't that be nice, eh, for program budgets if you had an unlimited number of contactors? Anyways, we'll hit save here now. When we hit save, we're going to give it a name. We're going to once again give it a identifiable name. I do have connectables as one group, blocks as one group, and then I do have another one that I'm going to go and call motor control. So this one's going to go into my motor control. Motor control. Oh, sorry, can't type there. Control, and then usually I'll identify, you know, if it's Schneider components or something like that. I'm also going to put a 1 up here on mine because this is not going to be one I'm keeping. I'm only building this one for the video here. But I'm going to hit save, and now I've got this thing saved as an actual unit. So at this point, what you should have, I'm just going to go back into here, I'm going to turn that one off because that one's not one that you have, but what we've created so far, following through all of these videos, is we have created this stencil with some screws inside of it. We use those screws inside of here. We've created this new one here for a Schneider motor contactor or whatever brand that you're creating. We've created this one that gave us that receptacle that we've completed. And we've created this one that gave us that wire fan that's now going to allow us to, junction stuff off of it. All right, that's the end for the contactor.